welcome to the Two Dudes Talk Movies podcast. I'm Luke.
I'm Griffin.
And we are back again with our second to last episode of the semester. It kind of snuck up on us, but we are here to talk about Das Boot, the director's cut. This is a German war film starring Jürgen Prochnow, Herbert Rogemeyer. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing these.
It's German.
Okay. Hubertus Benz, Thomas Boxhammer, Christian Bendomir, Martin Semmelrogue, Klaus Winterman, Jan Feder, Way Ostchukinet. I definitely mispronounced that one, and a long list of others. There's quite a few in here. But yeah, like I said, it's a German war film. It's based on a novel or an autobiography of a German World War II photographer, and basically just follows this crew and their life on a German U-boat.
Yes. So initially this movie is normally 2.5 hours long, but that's the theatrical cut. Because I am a cruel man, I decided, okay, I should probably back up a little bit more. This movie was originally recommended to me by my dad. He recommended a bunch of World War II movies, and I was just like, you know what, I have to get through these eventually. Let's just do one for the podcast. And oh boy, I picked probably the longest one I could have chosen for the podcast, because the theatrical release, as I said, is 2.5 hours. The director's cut is 3.5, which kind of continuing last week's trend. This also sets a new Two Dudes record, because this is now the longest movie covered on Two Dudes. So
Really?
Shout out to that. Yeah. Previously, I think it was like Interstellar or something like that.
I didn't think Interstellar was that long, though, was it?
It's like 2.5, 2 hours, 45 minutes.
See, I feel like for me, I hit the mic, but I feel like for me, 2.5 is like the standard. Which some people are like, you're crazy for that. That's too long. And like, yeah, I get it, but I feel like that's the average runtime that I end up watching things.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I think for me, like hour 45 to like 2.5 is usually a good range to aim for. But yeah, this one's 3.5.
Yeah, and you know, it's really bad because as someone who, I don't know if I watched it right when it dropped, but I did watch Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that still to this day is the longest movie that I've watched at 4 hours and 8 minutes long. But man, at least that one like didn't feel so boring. But I don't want to get into that yet. I want to hear about what you thought first, because you're the one recommended this.
So I'll get into the boring stuff later, because I do share some opinions on that. I feel, but yeah, it's just like it's like a World War II movie, made in Germany, because you know everyone speaks German. It's an international film, and yeah, I think that I think I've been meaning to watch like more international films, just kind of get into more of that range. Because I mean, most typical American like war films are just like, you know, they can have that like sense of drama, and they're very, you know, Hollywood like that kind of thing. Whereas like more overseas, it's kind of like it's a different take. It can still have like some of the same tropes, but like at the same time too, like Das Boot is like, it's basically takes place all inside of the U-505s, or not U-505, just like a U-boat submarine. I was thinking of the one in Chicago. But yeah, it all takes place inside of like one U-boat, and it's just kind of like you're there with the crew the entire time as they go through a lot of different perils and just kind of like their daily life. And yeah, that's kind of the 3.5 hour experience. That's basically almost the entire movie.
Yeah, it's...
It's a grind fest.
Man. Like, okay, let me start with things that I actually did like.
Sure.
Surprisingly, I thought the acting was good. Now, on first instance, I was like, I don't have any standout characters. I feel like I'm watching people. And I think that's kind of the point, because it's adapting from an autobiography, and it's historical in nature. So therefore, these people are very real. It should just straight up be the people. And I think having this not be some grandiose person in history, like how Oppenheimer was, for example, or things like that, right? It's a very war-grounded story, kind of how 1917 is almost.
Yeah.
Dunkirk,
Yeah.
you can make kind of the same argument for, but there's like much larger names attached to it. So it's kind of in that similar vein where it's a much more localized, ground level story. And having no standout character makes me feel like I'm just watching the people in real time, almost like it's more of a documentary than it is anything else.
Right.
So I can rock with that idea.
Yeah, that Despo definitely takes like, it's not meant to be like, a grandiose film, like you said. It's like, it's very real. Like the acting performances, like that's almost not even really the point of the movie, I'd argue. It's like, it's very like honed in on just like what these people are going through. And it's like, even though they're in Germany in World War II, not necessarily a side that anyone would be rooting for, it's still like just kind of like what soldiers were going through, like no matter what side, like, every side had their navy. So it's like, it's almost like what everyone was going through. And it's like, being in that dark, crowded submarine is just like, you never know like what the next moment is going to be. Like you could be under attack one moment, you could be going through a bad storm the next. And it's like, the acting does show that off pretty well, I think, when it needs to, because it's like, it doesn't need to be too grand, but like the reactions are pretty realistic, I'd say.
That was something that was interesting whenever I was watching it, because they're fighting for Germany. They are Nazis, but any of the Nazi references or propaganda or detailing feels like secondhand thought,
right?
Almost, where it's not very prevalent. You kind of forget when you're watching that they are German, and in the scope of World War II, they are just.
Is the fact that they're speaking German just make you forget? I'm kidding, but
no, it's just there's nothing like very blatant in your face about it. The only time that I feel like it's very in your face is anytime the soldiers have like the patch on their arm, and whenever you see that, they're such small figures because you're looking at a wide shot of the submarine leaving.
Right.
So and then maybe in passing reference to like the Fuhrer and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because like a couple of times too, like particularly like at the beginning when they're all partying, like, yeah, no, that's pretty obvious they're German, but like just even with like the small nods of them being German throughout, it's like you wouldn't be able to tell either way.
Yeah. I also really like the cinematography. This all does take place primarily in the submarine, and it's very cool that they build that sense of place, because whenever you first get on, they have this one take showing you through the interior, and then as the scenes happen in each room, having that one take in the back of your mind, you're able to place where each room is of the ship and can visualize the scale of the ship on this very condensed level. And having it so crowded as well adds a level of atmosphere to it. So being able to capture that was nice. But then I also like the underwater shots that we get too. I feel like those are probably the most memorable shots, especially that opening one of the submarine, like slowly creeping through the water. Yeah. And the water is all very deep green. So it is a little more artsy, but also kind of just eerie at the same time.
Yeah. And kind of tagging onto the cinematography too, like the sets overall are just pretty well done. Like this was made in like 1981, so it's like before any real CGI was kind of prevalent. So it's like, I'm sure they used like models and they built like, actual sets. I don't think they didn't build like a whole submarine or anything, but like that would have been really out of budget for this. But yeah, no, the sets are really impressive. Like there's like no use of CGI. It's basically all practical, which I think is, better than CGI any day. But yeah.
Yeah, I fear that's where my enjoyment ends, which really sucks.
Okay, well, before we get into Mr. Movie Hater over here, because we're only about 10 minutes in, let's enjoy this while we can. Let's make this whole podcast 3.5 hours. No.
God, no.
I don't think he's ready for that. But yeah, I would also say like another positive I would tack on is like the action scenes were pretty cool too. I mean, I know there's a lot of them because, it's 3.5 hours, but like it's still like you feel the fear of them being in the submarine. I think like the movie does a really good job of like capturing their emotions, like when they are terrified and like they don't really know what's happening. and they have to rely on people like peeking up from the submarine just to kind of see what's going on the not the surface, but like just what's going on the water, like what ships are coming and what planes are flying overhead. It's like it really does a good job like with that kind of action, just kind of like showing the whole terror of it all.
I disagree.
Well, okay then. I guess we're getting into the negatives now. Go ahead.
Yeah. In the long list, starting with this though, I agree that from a filmmaking standpoint, it does accomplish that goal. You can very clearly see on the actor's face that they're terrified. The cinematography matches it, especially as you get into like the end of the movie as the action really ramps up and there's a lot more rapid camera cuts compared to the earlier where it's very still, silent. The music is meant to drill that suspense in and heighten that anticipation. But I feel like because of the long amount of runtime this movie has, nothing of importance comes from these moments of tension. And I understand the point is probably that you genuinely just don't know in the scale of war, right?
That is the point.
I know. But in the first hour, it happens so much that I no longer can be immersed into it and buy into this like fear and unsettling. I solely just see the filmmaking principles of it, and it's not enough for me to care about it. It would be no different than if I saw the script on paper and that was it. Like scripts alone are not enough to grab my attention or hold me in like that, right?
Right.
So I need the film itself with the cinematography, the lighting, the acting to actually tie everything together. And while it does do what it wants to do, it's not enough for me because it happens so often that it feels like I'm watching Boy Who Cried Wolf because they're always on edge. Nothing ever happens. And that's the first hour. Maybe the last 30 minutes of the first half of this movie actually start to pick up, but even then it's still bad and nothing like really feels like I don't know. It feels like it's a terrible comparison, but it feels like I'm being edged with the action. Like you're getting it very close and then not doing anything with it.
Yeah.
I understand that the intent was that you are on edge because you are in war you do not know. But this movie is 3.5 hours long. And if you spend the first half of the movie doing that, you're losing me very strongly.
Yeah. That's a fair take. Because I know this movie's like long as sin, so it's going to be like a very, very, very repetitive. And like, yeah, that is the point. And like, but I also feel like this is where I will kind of agree with you now. Like, I do think they captured the emotion really well. I think they captured the terror really well. And like, I think it gets its message across pretty well. But did they need to do it in 3.5 hours? I know Luke will say no, so I'm going to say it for both of us. No. Yeah, thanks, Luke.
I don't like, because this will come up later about the hour runtime, but I'm holding on to that for a second. But it really is boring. Genuinely, the first hour and a half of this movie are some of the most dreadful things that I've ever watched. Only because it is so mind-numbing. It very, like on a fundamental level, like I said, Boy Who Cried Wolf is the best example of what it is. Yeah, there's actually a couple times that something does happen.
Right.
But it's nothing of substance and just feels very out of place. And I don't vibe with it. And I think that gets more hindered because maybe I'm wrong, but I swear there are instances of where the submarine resurfaces and goes back under that are reused shots. I can't be certain, but they look almost identical.
I think after 3.5 hours, yeah, maybe they do start to use like, you know, the submarine goes up, and then later when they're editing, they like flip the shot, and like the submarine comes back up, and like, you know, I don't know that for sure, but like it's very possible they could have reused the same shots. Not that I, you know, blame them exactly, because that would be a god.
It's also because I was thinking about that too. Like it's a submarine coming in and out of the water. I don't know how very visual that is, but something I thought about is that why does the camera need to be away from the ship and then just have the ship manually rise up and down on the horizon? Why can't you put the camera in front of the ship facing the water, have the ship slowly rise out of the water to meet the camera as the camera keeps moving back so it looks like one fluid motion? Right. Why can't you have the camera underwater attached outward from the submarine so as it goes up, it raises out of the water? Maybe that technology wasn't a thing that they're able to do, but there are shots where the submarine is underwater. Whether the camera was underwater or that was artificially made later on, I don't know. But if you can do that, surely you can replicate something else to make more interesting things happen with the cinematography, to not reuse shots.
Right. Which kind of brings me to another point, unless you have anything else regarding that.
Not with that, but I have one more thing.
Okay. So basically, it is a very boring movie. I will give it that, because like basically the plot is they're in the submarine, a danger comes, they survive said danger, they go back to their normal lives in the submarine. That is the entire 3.5 hour film. I don't know about the theatrical cut because I don't know what they cut out of it, but like I can imagine it's very much the same thing. So it's like, I get that that's the point of the movie, is that it's supposed to be repetitive because it feels like they're living the same day over and over, slowly going insane inside of a submarine. But the length of the movie just doesn't do it for me, because it's like I know I'm the one who chose this out, so I kind of knew what I was getting into, but like,
well, you recommended it. If anything, I think this is your dad's fault. Sorry,
yeah,
Griffin's
sorry,
dad, but I think this is on you.
Man, my dad's gonna have beef with you now. Shout out my dad though. But yeah, overall, I mean, I get what it's trying to do, but at the same time, the runtime just does not do it for me.
I think the even larger problem in the room that needs addressed is that it's a storytelling problem, where
yes,
The Boy Who Cried Wolf stuff is a lot of self-contained instances through the first half of the movie. The second half slowly ramps up, and that third act, you could say, however long that might end up being, where shit hits the fan basically once they return home, right? Well, on what was supposed to be this victory, and it's this massive switch up, and there's no satisfying resolution or victory behind it. It's 100% a loss after they were in belief that it was a victory. I think is meant to highlight how there kind of is no winning, losing in war.
Yeah.
It just is. And having that shown is good. And I think that would have made a much stronger ending had this movie not been so goddamn long. Because you run into the storytelling problem of, I keep just saying it, but the Boy Who Cried Wolf, it really just is. There's a danger. No, there's not. Never mind. There's a danger. Yes, there is, but we live. No, never mind. It's so much of that by the time that the danger actually is present and is a real threat that genuinely impacts the crew on a substantial level. Not just I hit my head against a pole, I'm bleeding now. I'm talking legitimate deaths and actual consequences for actions. It's too far late for me to care, because you've already set the precedent that you're going to fake it out and nothing happens. So it really just is The Boy Who Cried Wolf, because whenever something actually does happen, no one cares.
Yeah, I get kind of the length would do that to the movie. That did kind of bring up a question I did write down, was like, did the ending like surprise you at all, or not? Not really. I mean, I get like the analogy with like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, and like the danger finally comes, and like just kind of spoiling the ending here. But like, I think it's like either British or French planes. They come through and they essentially bomb the port that they've landed in, and like a lot of the crew dies, including the captain. And then their submarine also sinks, and then that's it. That's credits. So yeah, let's hear your thoughts.
I think, well, for starters, no. But I think it would have mattered to me more if there wasn't that precedent of constantly copping out on the danger and nothing actually really mattering in the scope of it for so long. Because by the time it actually matters, I'm already checked out to where I no longer am surprised to be like, oh, it's really just It happened.
Yeah.
I'm too checked out by that point because of how long and how baity. Baity's probably not a word, but I'm gonna use
Baiting.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
how much bait there is, I guess.
Yeah. For me, it's like on a fundamental level, like, yeah, there's a little bit of surprise there because it's like, oh, like they just got bombed because, you know, that surprised anyone, I feel. But like at the same time, too, just with 3.5 hours having just passed, it's like my eyes just kind of glazed over and I was like, oh, they're getting bombed. And it's just like, yeah, it's like surprising, like, oh, like half the crew's dead. But like at the same time, too, it's like with the length of the movie, it kind of like takes away from that factor a little bit, I feel.
Yeah. I'm ready for a deep thought because it relates to the time of the movie and the runtime, but I don't know if we're there just yet.
I figured the deep thought might relate to the time because that's a very common theme throughout this episode, I feel.
Yeah.
But let's see. I think, yeah, I don't have like too much. Maybe more will come up later, but yeah, go ahead.
All right. So this movie, as we stated earlier, is 3.5 hours long. The
director's cut is.
The director's cut, yes. Which also, I'm pretty sure there's a longer version.
Really?
Somebody said that there was, maybe it's wrong, and I have to double check it, but I swear I saw somebody say that there's a TV show that is also meant to mix in with this, and the runtime goes over like 4 hours at that point.
I do know there's a TV show that was made a few years later, just kind of what I saw in Letterboxd. But I don't know how much it relates to the movie.
Yeah, because I don't know if it was something like the Watchmen instance where like the movie and the show are kind of separated. So I don't know. But anyway, the director's cut is 3.5 hours long. The theatrical is 2.5. But looking through like the Letterboxd reviews and whatnot, and then also just generally, I feel like more people were advocating that you watch the director's cut as opposed to the theatrical. Why?
Well, to get the full experience, I guess. I mean, don't you want to be in a tight, cramped, probably smelly submarine for days and days on end and have to watch that for 3.5 hours through like an audience perspective? That sound so enticing, right?
Nah, I don't know. Like, cause I don't know. I can't fully understand why for the director's cut. My best guess answer really is just that everybody's like, well, it's the definitive experience. You need to watch the full thing and see how the crew interacts with each other to get the point of the movie and the themes that it's going for. And I can understand that because having watched the director's cut, and like I said, I can point out from a filmmaking standpoint and structure-wise that they are checking the boxes. It's just, it's taking too long to do it.
Right.
And I don't know in the theatrical cut what was taken out as opposed to the director's cut.
Want to find out?
Not really. I don't want to watch this one again. I'm gonna be real, but I like thinking about it though. I don't know what you would cut aside from all of the stuff in the first hour and a half, and maybe that's what they did, and maybe that would have made it stronger because you're condensing the amount of fluff, I guess.
Yeah.
Or those in between scenes of passing where nothing really happens. So I could see that, but I also feel like that's just a general problem that some people have that watch movies where they're like, oh, you have to watch the director's cut. It was the intended vision. It's much better this way. And that's not always the case. I think for me, in the limited amount of director's cuts that I've watched for anything, the only time I could really get behind it was Kill Bill for the whole bloody affair. Only because if you watched them at two separate times, 1 and 2 feel very disconnected from each other, but having that in-between chapter, the name of which I'm forgetting, but having that in-between chapter to help tie them together and watching it as one cohesive project actually makes it stronger. Very rarely do I feel like that happens. I think back to, and Patrick's going to hate me for this, so shout out Patrick, but earlier him and I were talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it's one of his favorite movies of all time, and it is still the longest movie that I've watched, but it has a ton of problems. Is
Kill Bill longer?
Ooh, wait, actually. Kill Bill might be longer than 4 hours and 8 minutes. Because we were in the theater for a while. Whenever we
Yeah,
watched it.
like almost 4.5. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe Kill Bill Whole Bloody Affair is the longest. I take that back. But point being, like he was saying that that's one of his favorite movies because it does so much of adding in director's original vision for what that project needed to be. But it's still very fundamentally flawed, almost just as much as the theatrical cut was. And dare I say, if not more. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we necessarily need director's cuts for it. If it's something, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like that's just a general problem I have with director's cuts is that it doesn't always actually need to be that long.
Right. With director's cuts, yeah, Kill Bill, I'll agree. Like, I think Kill Bill is just like volume 1, volume 2, that one chapter that was made in Fortnite.
No, that was at the end. There was the animated one in the middle that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think that's also in one. I don't know for sure, but we can fact check that later.
I play Fortnite. I know the one in the middle was not from Fortnite. I can confirm
Well, yeah,
that.
well, yeah, I know there was that.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, but like the one from
the one
Fortnite
at the
was
very end for
meant to be
Yeah.
placed in between like a couple of the chapters, I think.
Yes.
Off topic. No, it's fine. But from the director's cuts that I've seen, I think one of them that does it right is like Lord of the Rings. Because I haven't seen all the director's cuts, but like it does make the movies insanely long. Like I'm talking like 3.5, 4 hours here. Yeah. But like with Lord of the Rings, it's like it's kind of about the journey, and I know we're going hell off topic with this, but like it's kind of like more about the journey and like about the characters. And I feel like for Lord of the Rings, it makes sense to have it. For Des Boot, it's more like, oh, we're gonna add in like an hour and a half, or no, just an hour, an hour of like submarine. It just kind of feels more like that, and so it's like it doesn't feel necessary. Like I feel like 2.5 hours is perfectly fine for what it needed to do, not 3.5, and potentially more if the TV series does what it says it does.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings is one that I understand. I'm a fraud. Have not watched yet. Need to get on it. I plan to do it over the summer. All right.
Damn.
But those are ones that I know that they have an extended edition for, and I was talking with Jackson Adkins at one point, shout out, who also watched through all of them, and I believe he finished a couple weeks ago watching the last one of the extended cuts, and he was like, yeah, it's rough to sit through because it's so long, but they do make it better. So I don't know. I don't know. Director's cuts are a funny thing.
Yeah, aren't they?
Yeah. Notice how I'm not laughing about this movie's director's cut. Yeah, that's really all I have, though, just to go over. But I'm ready for ratings if you think you are.
Yeah, I believe so. I don't have anything. So,
okay. You were recommended the movie. I fear you have to go first.
Let's see. This one's kind of like a bit of a difficult one to rate, I feel, because like at the same time, I get what it's trying to do. Like, it's meant to show the fear, the emotion, and like the acting's pretty decent for what it is, and like cinematography too. And it's like some of the action too, it's a mismatch, but like and then the ending was kind of, I mean, on a fundamental level, it was shocking, but after 3.5 hours, it's really not. So it's like, it's one of those movies I feel like that has to be more appreciated than like enjoyed, I feel, because it's like, you know what they were trying to do, but holy crow, the execution is just like, why did it need to be this length? So I think it is only fitting that I give this 3.5 hours out of 5 hours. That right. I hope that makes sense. Right. So Luke, what about you?
Slightly more generous than I do appreciate the cinematography and acting, but it's just not enough. I think most of my experience with this movie boils down to a Boy Who Cried Wolf situation where they constantly bait you with action or some sort of payoff for the suspense. Nothing actually happens until the very end when it really does happen. But by that point, you're 3.5 hours in, you're so checked out that it doesn't matter anymore. And I understand on a structural level how they accomplish the piecing together of everything to make it very representative of war and show how that's just how it is. There's a lot of uncertainty until it's right on your doorstep or literally above your head. But it just isn't enough for me. It is too long and therefore too boring. So I have to give it a 3 out of 5 for that. It's very mid for me.
That's actually higher than I thought you'd give it.
I think if I couldn't understand or like visualize how they were doing the structure, I probably would have given it lower. But I'm not at a point where it's just like, yeah, this was bad, this was terrible, or like there's elements here that you could have salvaged to make it better, to make
Right.
it subpar. It very strongly is just middle of the road mid for me, where I'm like, there's good, there's bad. I can't be bothered.
Right. It's just kind of like, here's movie. It was movie.
Enjoy your movie, you popcorn munchers. Like, that's basically how it feels watching this. But that's going to do it for this episode of Two Dudes. We will be back next week with our, I believe, final episode
Yes.
of the semester. It will be a guest, and then we will be checked out for the semester. So we will be back eventually. But until then, I'm Luke.
I'm Griffin.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.